All right, we're live. Here you go.
Oh, I'm near Cleveland. Okay. Um, so my name is Jamie Cassup, and I am near Cleveland, and I am the Global Education Evangelist for Google. I've been at Google for 8 years. For the most part, what my job is, what I do is I work across all Google to think about what the future of learning looks like, both in the K-12 space and also in the university space. And kind of my background, like I said, I've been here for 8 years. I launched Google Apps for Education with 2 universities when we signed on Arizona State University. They were the first school to use Google Apps, first major university to use Google Apps. And then I launched Google Apps in the K-12 a couple years later. We try to target 250,000 users in K-12, and we ended up with 2 million that first year. And today we have 40 million users using Google Apps for Education around the world. Then a couple years later, I launched Chromebooks in education, and basically the potential that Chromebooks can have in education from a ability to manage and scale and ease of use. And try to launch an education, and internally the team said, no, we're not gonna focus on education. We're just gonna focus on consumer market and maybe the business world. And I convinced them to launch an education by making up a whole bunch of stats and lying a lot, and was able to launch Chromebooks into education. And I predicted that we would have 50,000 Chromebooks. That was the number I promised, 50,000 Chromebooks in the first 3 months. And we ended up with 147. Not 147,000, 147 of them. And so then we would put 1 million Chromebooks in education, and we ended up putting just 140,000. So I'm really bad at forecasting, and that's not my strong skill set. And we ended up launching, and now we're doing like 1 million Chromebooks a month almost. And so my job is to think about how Google tools work in education and to think about what the future of learning looks like.
Can you tell everybody here? I mean, I saw you speak at the Google Summit in New Jersey, so I kind of know. I saw your keynote and I know your background. But can you talk about your life growing up and where you are now and kind of how you got here?
Yeah. So I'm a first in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Well, I was born in Long Island, but I grew up in Hell's Kitchen, New York, the small town on Manhattan on 48th Street and 10th Avenue. So my mother came to this country from Argentina. I was born here, learned Spanish first, and showed up at Piece 111, and they said, "Welcome to Piece 111," and I said, "Yeah," so had to learn English as a second language. But typical urban stuff that our kids are dealing with today, right? So first generation American, grew up basically on welfare and food stamps, single mother, no father around, and education was my way out. And through all that and hard work, I was able to get to the point where I am today. And so to me, that's the power and the potential of education, right? That it can take a kid like me from Hell's Kitchen and turn him into an executive at Google focused on having 40 million users. And so that's kind of my message when I talk. So I'm actually sitting here I'm outside of Cleveland at a school. I've just visited a school and visited students and talked to teach can help us in unbelievable ways to help close that achievement gap, to help close the digital divide. And that's what excites me and gets me up and going every day. And that's why I'm focused on education space.
Just to let you know, I'm not sure if you can see it on your side, but you are freezing a little bit here and there, so you're dropping. I'm not sure if you're on like hotel Wi-Fi or what.
No, I'm on a school Wi-Fi. If you're having, just have me repeat things if you didn't hear things. That's
okay. Right. Is that with a few questions?
What class is this?
This is a undergraduate college course. This is what we call a GEN, so it's a general studies class. So we have majors from all different diverse We have two.
So is it like one of those North Carolina classes? General studies?
History frisbee or anything like that. But it is what it is we're learning, or I'm teaching them some digital tools to carry forth into other classes, but also make them more marketable for the job market, and also introduce them to what PLNs are and social media and how to leverage them for professional usage. So we have 2 education majors in here, and we also have 2 computer science majors. So.
Okay. So yeah, so social media is an interesting. My daughter is actually graduating college, right? So she's in her last year, and she doesn't really, besides Facebook, doesn't really have a strong, social networking presence, and so she needs to work on that. And we talk about that all the time. Like, does she have a strong LinkedIn profile? Does she have a good network out there? What is her activities on public social networking sites like Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus, and Facebook? But having there is important. Especially, she's a filmmaker, so especially as a filmmaker, that's important stuff.
What was your question?
I didn't hear the last thing you said. The last one.
The last one was my daughter's focused on trying to build that reputation, right? Having a public reputation using digital tools is absolutely critical.
Go ahead, Mark.
So, are there any programs or services that you use that help you work more efficiently?
Well, first, let's not assume that I work efficiently. Most of my emails, actually, I tweeted this out or on Facebook. I don't remember where I put this, but a couple of days ago I said that most of my emails start with "Sorry for the delay in my response." That I should on my I should put that as a template on my my emails, so that I could just start with that. I don't have to type that every time I send an email. I think I actually tweeted this out a couple hours ago, and you have to remember that anytime that we respond to emails, we're doing somebody else's to-do items, right? We're not doing ours. We're doing somebody else's. Somebody else gets to accomplish something when we reply to emails, and so it's important to kind of the efficiency piece or the effectiveness piece comes with just discipline and making sure that you're focused on hours of work that you can get things done. So for me, easy, but I'm lucky that I spent a lot of time on an airplane. I spent a lot of time. You guys breaking up there?
No, that was on your side. Sorry.
I spent a lot of time on airplanes. I was saying I spent a lot of time on airplanes, and that's where I get a lot of work done. So I think that for me, the tools that I use from an efficiency perspective are obviously the Google tools that I'm grown accustomed to using. But it's more about the philosophies that you use for how to get work done.
Go ahead.
What are some of your favorite Google add-ons?
Oh, you mean
Just like
for like Google Apps, you mean, or just in general things, or?
Yeah, your favorite, the best.
Hold on, could you repeat that? You broke up.
I was going to ask you. Well, you're breaking up too, so I don't know if it's my side or your side. But I asked you what was specifically for like Google Apps or for Chrome extensions. Like, what specifically are you asking about?
Well, I was talking about Chrome extensions.
Yeah. So my favorite one is an extension called Readability.
Okay.
You know that?
I've heard of it, but haven't used it.
So anytime I find an article, I throw it into my Readability, and then it just stacks them up for me. And so whether my tablet, I can go into that app and get to it.
Yeah, I introduced them to Zite. Have you ever used Zite for the iPad? Oh, it's a great web. It's an aggregate for all different sorts of web content. So it'll go out and source blogs, articles, and so you can customize. I only want to see certain topics, and it'll pull all the stuff on the web for you related to that. So like I have one for film and TV, I have one for the NFL, I have one for all sorts of stuff, education, technology. And it's just, it's a way to share out easily through Twitter, and that's how I get most of my articles.
Got it.
It's very similar to.
I also like, there's a Chrome app called TweetDeck.
Yep.
Oh, he shows that one.
I use that one a lot, especially when I'm at conferences, because you can see real live things about what people are talking about. The back channel stuff is really good on that.
Yeah.
And then I was going to say on where is it here? On go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just froze for a second there. Let me open that up.
Weird. What's going on?
Okay. You talking about the comment tracker?
Yeah. So there's things in here where you can actually you can when you're having big events like this, or when you're on live Hangout, there's some really cool tools to be able to communicate back and forth and create a back channel. So this is an interesting thing where you can, someone speaking, you can respond to those comments.
Okay. There's also the Q&A too. So if you guys could actually ask a question, it would come to me, then I would say, okay, this is a good one. I would post it to him. He would see it through the Hangout. So that was a pretty good one too. So we have 2 computer science majors. Can you just kind of go through real quick what if you're hiring a new employee, what kind of things are you looking for, and what kind of, as far as their digital footprint and or work ethic and that kind of stuff, like what, if they went for an interview today, what would you be looking for?
So I think when and I actually was engineering, I think it's easy and hard to hire engineers, because the first thing is, can you code, right? Like, you say you know a language, let's see if you know the language, right? So that's part of it, is just understanding the language. And just like any language, English, for example, just because you know how words go together doesn't mean that you can write really well. And so the same thing with coding. It's how do you take what you know and apply it? And so the next step is, can you code? And then the next piece of that is, what can you do with that skill set? And so we'll ask, interesting questions to see if you can actually take that knowledge and build something, right, or design something. And so we're looking for, we always like to say, I've been there 8 years, curious people, and then we hire smart people, right? Like, you have to be smart, and then you have to be able to be really curious and want to solve problems. And the thing about Googlers in general is that, and this is stupid to say because I work there, but we hire really, really smart people, but also people that have an interesting other, right? They have an X factor, right? Like you're an engineer and a yachtsman. You're a program manager, and you are an Olympian, right? Like, you have these combinations of people that have passions in different areas.
His HD. On our side, I turned off, I adjusted the bandwidth. I don't know if maybe you want to try that as well.
Let me see.
I knocked it down just one to see if that would help out a little bit.
All right, how's that better?
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if it's on my, because I'm in a unique network here, but it's the admin network at the school, so I'm hoping that it's good and that it's on your side.
We're at a college facility, so gosh, I hope it's not ours.
Oh, it's definitely your side then.
Do you have any advice for technology professionals to stay updated in their field, or even students?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the skill set always changes. There's so many things out there. I think a lot of it is around discipline, right? There's so much that you can learn on your own. So many classes you can take. There's, you can learn how to be a programmer on your own for the most part. So there's lots of classes that you can take. So it's just a matter of finding that skill that you're really good at, especially on the technical side, and finding a group of people that are also interested in creating literally like study groups. I'll say this: one of the things, I'm hoping you guys can hear me, but one of the things that I remember when I graduated from graduate school, I remember saying, like, I am done learning, right? I never have to learn again. And nothing can be further from the truth, right? You're always in school, whether you like it or not. And so keeping that discipline going and always learning is what's critical, no matter what field you're in.
Yes. Oh.
All right, you work at Google, you're like cutting edge, everything's all high tech. What's like the next step? What are you doing next?
I can't tell you that. You mean things like the transporter that we're working on?
Yeah, I guess we're on the up and up, you know what I mean? I don't know.
What about the whole library?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've been trying to leave Google for about 3 years. I've been wanting to go start my own school system, and because I have all the things that I've learned over the last 8 years, I want to go do my own thing, and I can't leave because every time I decide that I'm ready to leave, we do something that's innovative that I want to see what we do with in education. So I think we're always trying to solve big problems and asking a lot of why not questions, and I think that's what's maintained Google's culture, is always pushing the envelope. Always asking, well, why can't we do that? And so, things that we're working on, I think, in terms of without, necessarily giving anything away, is definitely on the idea of, mobile devices and wearability things. I think things that you wear and things that are mobile is where the future is.
Go ahead. Sorry. What methods do you use to reach out to educators to really, get your voice out?
I sit in conference rooms with bad bandwidth, right? So I'm out in schools all the time. I love being out in schools, and I talk to educators, I talk to teachers. I'm in Ohio. I'm doing like 6 presentations in 5 days. I get lots of feedback, and so I'm really connected with my network. And back to that whole idea of creating, your digital footprint. It's really about networking and managing that network, and making sure that you're always communicating and engage with your community, your users. For Google, if you think about the difference between Google and other companies, I hope one of the differences is that we really, really focus on users, and that we're building tools for users. We're not building tools to beat the competition, right? I don't care what Microsoft's doing or what Apple's doing. I care about how my users are using our tools. And my job is to build tools that are easy to use, easy to manage, easy to scale, and make them transparent and invisible. When you start focusing on your competition, you start losing it. And a great example, not to throw them under the bus, but for those of you who are using iPhones, remember when Apple decided to launch their own map feature, and what happened with that, right? That wasn't necessarily focusing on your users. That was trying to beat the competition. And that's an example of focusing on your competition and not on your users. And it's important to focus on your users.
Since some of the students here are just about to graduate, can you tell your experience before starting at Google, trying to make that next transition, and maybe about how you got hired?
Yeah, so if you ask me, first of all, when I graduated high school, Google didn't exist, right? The internet didn't exist when I graduated. That's how old I am, right? But I would say that the lesson that I learned is that if I mapped out my career, so I worked for Governor Cuomo in New York. I spent 7 years at Accenture, working first in government, then I worked in financial services, I worked in healthcare, and then I spent the majority of my time there working in electronics and high tech. So I was there in a boom and a bust. I spent 2 years at Charles Schwab, which is like this black mark on my resume. It's like community service. I don't even count it sometimes. And then I've been at Google for 8 years. But I wouldn't be at Google if I wasn't at Charles Schwab for 2 years, because I worked for a senior VP who was the partner of the CIO at Google, who said, "Hey, you have to hire this guy, because he's terrible. He's having a terrible time at Charles Schwab, and he should be working at Google. He's built for Google. So I would say don't try to plan out the next 10 years. I would say, look at you might end up doing something that you don't think you should be doing, but everything that you do is building for the next step. Like, what does opportunity look like unless you take it, right? And so that's one. The other thing I would say is that every job or every career or everything that you ever want to do has a component of mundane, terrible work that you have to get through, right? If you are interested, for example, in product management, you have to have project management experience. Project management sucks, right? Like running project management databases, keeping track of everything, all the details around project management is terrible. You need to do that. You need to build that skill. So find that skill. So get that. It's like college, right? Get those required courses. Identify what those required courses are in your career and get the experience in those, so that you get those out of the way. We would never hire a PM at Google that didn't have project management experience, right? So it's something that you have to build early on. So I would say look at every opportunity as an opportunity, no matter what it is, right? You can end up doing something that has nothing to do with what you want to do in the future, but also focus on building that skill that is important in your career.
Yeah, I think that's true, because I actually, when I first got out of college, I was like, oh man, I'm going to take this summer off. I'm just going to chill. It's going to be great. And then 9/11 happened, and then the economy went down the toilet. So unfortunately, me being a slacker that summer really did cost me. I wasn't out there. I wasn't trying to get in there right away. And I didn't find anything full-time until the following year. So that was a whole year where I didn't have any employment, of substance.
Yeah. What's great about building your building your skills and building your reputation, here I'm a hoodlum. I'm still a hoodlum, right? Like my email address is ghettosuperstar@google.com, right? I still have that email address. And as a kid who grew up in the streets of New York, and I'm a hoodlum, and here I am at Google, and because of my reputation, because of my network, because of my presence, I never have to send a resume anywhere ever again, right? Like I can pick the next thing I do, and that takes hard work to get you to that point, right? And that's in anything, whether you're an athlete, who wants to be traded, or whether you are, someone who has a certain skill set. Even mechanics, great mechanics, make $150,000 in Phoenix when they work for BMW and Cadillac and other of the big name mechanic shops. So if you're good at what you do and you have a good reputation and you have a really good network, you don't need resumes, right? I can't remember the last time I had a resume. So that's what you should be working towards.
Yeah, sometimes you got to take that foot in the door job just to get through, but like you said,
yeah, you never know who you're going to meet at those things, right? You never know who's gonna connect you to something else, and you never know the skills that you're gonna develop.
Questions?
Are you going to be in New Jersey presenting anytime soon?
I try to avoid New Jersey as much as possible. I'm kidding. Sorry, I got to throw my New Jersey joke. I was just in New York. This is a quick funny story I'll share. I was in New York 2 weeks ago, and I went to the Jon Stewart show. Have you guys been to the Jon Stewart? You should do that. You live in the New York area, you should do that. So I went to the Jon Stewart show with my daughter, who was with me because she's doing a documentary and she wanted to get some film of the city. And we went to the Jon Stewart show, and Bill O'Reilly was the guest speaker, or the guest. And so it's, Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly, for those of you who watch that, you know that battle and how they go back and forth. And so I'm sitting there, and the conversation is white privilege, right? And whether it exists and what we should do about it. And so Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly are getting into a fight about white privilege. And Bill O'Reilly says, if you work hard and you get your education and you're honest, you can be anything. Right, and which I agree with, but then he said, we all start from the same line, and I lost my mind. And then he said, do you think I'm sitting in this chair because I'm white? And I screamed out, Yes, exactly. That's part of it, right? And he turned to me because I was right behind. I was like 5 feet away from him in the audience. And he turned to me and he goes, "No, you moron! It's because I'm obnoxious." And somebody actually wrote an article about this. So I don't know what this has to do with me visiting New Jersey, except for the fact that I am a New Yorker and I try to go home as much as possibly can. I always like to say, if you'll understand this if you travel, is that I always like to say I go back to New York to breathe, to get fresh air. And people don't understand what I mean by that, but it's the most refreshing place in the world to me. So I spend a lot of time back in New York, and so yeah, there's opportunities for me to come out to New Jersey. There's events, and I, as mentioned the Google summits and those types of things. I might be doing quite a few things in New Jersey as soon as you guys get rid of that governor.
Only a couple more weeks, hopefully. But if you ever get a chance to see him keynote, I was highly impressed and riveted during that one. That was I think a year and a half ago with Lisa Philman. That was a really good presentation.
That was a good crowd. And there's one thing about a New Jersey crowd is that if you get them going, they'll get going, and that I think for me, my presentations a lot come from the audience, the energy from the audience, and I'll say that New Jersey audience was probably one of the best audiences I've ever had. Very loud and rambunctious, and you should be proud of how annoying you are.
That's how we roll, man. I'm actually, I didn't tell you this, but I'm actually excited. I'm leaving tomorrow for London, going to GTA.
Which one?
UK, London.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so.
Nice.
Should be a good 4 days.
When is that? Is that before BET? What are the dates?
It's on Monday, Tuesday.
Of this week?
Yeah, coming up, yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm not going to that one. Or maybe I am. That's the other thing. You talk about efficiency. You asked a question about efficiency, and this is literally true. I have no idea where I am hour to hour, and if I didn't have my calendar, if it's not, the saying is that if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't get done. And so my wife literally puts things on my calendar to do. Like, she'll put take out the garbage at 5:45 on Tuesdays. If it's not on the calendar, I'm flying on Saturday back to Phoenix. I have no idea what time my flight is. No concept. And then I'm flying out on Sunday to D.C. I have no idea what time that flight is. I don't even know what day I'm coming back. I literally live hour to hour by my calendar, and if I didn't have that, I would be lost. I don't know how people survive. I don't know how people survive without an electronic calendar, and I don't know how people survive without maps. I used to travel, and I'm trying to remember, what did I do? Did I have paper maps? Did I use did I stop at gas stations and ask people for directions? That seems bizarre to think about, how to travel without maps.
Matt, you have any questions?
I guess just what kind of thing should someone in a computer science major should focus on if they want to get a job at something like Google? What should we do right now to?
While they're still in school.
Yeah.
Are you coding? Are you a good coder?
Yeah.
I would just keep building that skill. Coding is absolutely critical, right? We had a phase where students at ASU were graduating with engineering degrees who couldn't code, right? So, any language, getting good at programming is absolutely critical. And then, what do you do with that programming? So I would focus on projects. What projects? Whatever assignment or project you have in a class, make it even bigger than that. Turn it into something. That's what I would focus on, is building something out really big. Getting some projects under your belt, or doing things on your own time as well.
Look at those hands go up. Yeah, on Monday and Tuesday it's with Ewan McIntosh. Do you know him?
I probably do.
He's with Notosh. He's actually going to be running the whole in London and the Netherlands. So, no questions? Slackers. Bunch of slackers in here, I tell you.
Actually, kind of a question. You were saying how like you're really relying on your technology for your, minute-to-minute processes. So I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I need my iPad with me at all times. So
Although he did just get an Android phone, so it's okay.
yeah, definitely.
As long as you don't take pictures with your iPad, you're okay.
But there has to be some like mentality in that, remembering things like when you go into a meeting rather than being so reliant on this technology. Like, what is your advice as far as getting that happy medium?
I look at it the other way. I think that it's given us the opportunity to use our brains for something else, right? So, remember, I mean, you guys don't remember this because you're like puppies, but when I was a kid, I used to have to remember like 10 phone numbers, right? Because maybe some of you remember like when you were 3, but you used to have to remember like 10 phone numbers, like your mother's number, your father's number, like the house numbers, not even cell phone numbers, like people's numbers. You had to memorize. Like you had to know the school number, or how would you call? You'd have to keep a list of that somewhere. And I honestly don't even know my kid's phone number, right? Like I have no idea what their phone. I barely know people's last names because you start typing an email address and their name just pops in. So I think that the opposite is true. I think that we don't have to carry so much information in our brains that it frees us up to actually do some thinking. So I'm okay with my calendar telling me where to go because I don't have to think about like, oh, I got to get my paper map out and map out where I'm going and what gas station I can ask questions in, right? So I don't have to worry about that.
All right. Well, since they're a lively crowd today, so.
Yeah, is this the last class of the day? Oh, it's a night class. Wait, no, I don't even know what time it is. Is it 5:30?
5:30, yeah, but some of them have a 6 o'clock class, so they, but it's statistics, so.
Oh God, I hate it. God, that's terrible. I feel so bad for you.
Yeah, I'm sure they're riveted to wait for that one. But anyway, if nobody else has any questions, I just wanted to give our computer science majors a chance to jump in and ask some questions to someone in the field, and also some education majors who did not ask any questions. An opportunity. So we thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, Jamie.
All right. Bye.
Bye.